What's going on, guys? Billy Pinckney here alongside Ron Marinaccio of the New York Yankees. Ron, how's it going?
Not bad, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, drafted by the Yankees out of Udell back in 2017. Being from Jersey, Toms River, how exciting was it to get drafted by a local team?
It definitely enhanced the hype a little bit. I'm a Yankees fan growing up, family full of Yankees fans. So, everybody around here was a little bit more excited that it was the Yankees opposed to anybody else.
Yeah, this past year, you had a dominant year down in AA Somerset and then AAA, but you've been with the Yankees for several years prior to that. This year, in 1.82 ERA, and then ended the year with an ERA just above 2. What were some of your keys to success this season?
Keys to success, I think, kind of date back to that long layoff that we had during that COVID year. So, we missed that whole minor league season. So it was kind of just, I got to the point where it was like I'm getting a little bit older here, so I kind of gotta push the pedal down a little bit here, get it going. So got after it for like a year. I found a new trainer down in South Jersey that I liked, and we started getting after it. And the Yankees did a really good job with the communication over that whole time. So we each had our individual pitching coaches that we were shooting messages back and forth with. So I got a nice velocity jump that COVID year, so that obviously helps play with the rest of my pitches, plays up a little bit. But I think just putting in the work and finding a nice routine that I liked and could stick with really helped me.
Right, 105 strikeouts, 66 plus innings pitched. It's crazy. Why do you feel your whiff rate was so high this year, and what was your go-to pitch in that type of strikeout situation?
The go-to pitch was definitely the changeup. I think it's a pitch that I've had in my back pocket for the past couple of years, but like I said, with the velocity jump now, I opened a couple eyes in the organization. So then the analytics team kind of was like, "Hey, you got this pitch in your back pocket that I think in previous years I was only using maybe 5% of the time." And then, this year, first game I came out and I think I threw it over 50% of the time in the first game. And I was like, okay, this is definitely something that I'm going to have to utilize a lot more than I have in the past. So it was definitely the changeup. And I think just like I said, like that little velocity jump makes all the pitches play up a little bit and, gives myself a little bit more confidence in having a little bit more room for error with those pitches.
Yeah, the changeup's something that I know a lot of guys have been really throwing a lot more. I talked to another guy with the Dodgers. He was really talking about his changeup and how that's been a game changer for him. Was that something you also worked on during that COVID time and the time away from the field?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it was with my pitching coach that I was back and forth with, and he was the first one to really say something to me like, "Hey, like that's a pretty crazy changeup you got working." Once we started messaging like data back and forth that we were receiving from bullpens and stuff like that, and I didn't know much about it, like too much, because at the lower levels we weren't diving too much into that stuff back in 2019. But then this, like, we had all this time to get into that stuff, so he was like, this is definitely going to be more of a weapon. So he opened my eyes to it. And throughout the other places I was throwing, they were kind of saying the same thing, so that kind of opened my eyes and was like, hey, I definitely need to use this pitch a little bit more often.
That year was really considered a year of development too, right? They didn't
Yeah.
they didn't take that as like, we'll worry about that next year. That was a time where they really.
Yeah, it was back and forth every day. We were, they had us logging all of our stuff that we were doing. They did a really good job of staying on top of us. And the guys that took advantage of it, you definitely saw who reaped the benefits from it.
Yeah, you just touched on it too, the analytics and what the Yankees have been doing with that. And they're definitely one of the top organizations when it comes to use of analytics. How do you feel it's evolved, the use of the analytics, when it comes to the Yankees organization from when you were drafted in 2017 to this past season?
I think it's become a lot more hands-on. Now we have an analytic guy that will travel with each team. And I think this was the first year we did this. At least it was the first year that I got to experience it, at least at the upper levels. But I know we had them at all levels this year too. So, we had guys and they were rotating. So it wasn't the same guy all year, but it was kind of somebody introducing us more and more to the analytics, so we become more familiar with it, instead of just saying, like, because a lot of this stuff sounds foreign to some guys that are just, good at throwing a baseball, but like they introduce kind of like why it works. Like they make you understand a little bit how to make those percentages play into your favorite. And I mean, it doesn't work all the time, but like over the long run, that 162 game season, those numbers hopefully start to fall into your favor.
Right. What do you recognize as some of the main points that they look for in a pitcher? These analytical people and the people who travel with the teams and the coaching staffs, what do they look for when it comes to analytics?
It's kind of, finding the best pitch for the best spot. So, finding like it'll individualize like between each pitcher and the hitters on the other team, what your best pitch is going to be for that guy in certain counts, like what their weaknesses, and kind of like starting to pair those up is it gives you like, it's not the best pitch to throw every time, but like in most situations, like this is the pitch that you'll probably have the most success with. And, there's definitely a good amount of feeling it out when you're out there too, and reading swings and stuff like that. But just having like more of a game plan going into the at bat rather than going up there and, this thinking slider is your best pitch, where fastball might be your best pitch to this guy. And, you're trying to mess around with a slider.
Yeah. Do you feel it's too much at times and there's still feel the game involved? How do you feel they do when it comes to mixing the feel the game and their own baseball sense and analytics as well paired together?
Yeah, no, I think that there definitely could be times where it comes a little bit too much because, when you dive into analytics and but like, for example, if you look at like a one game scenario, like when you look at a one game scenario, I think that's when you have to pump the brakes a little bit on the analytical side, because, anything could happen and you gotta, that's when the baseball minds come out. But I think that the Yankees are starting to do a really good job of grabbing these guys that have that baseball experience and also, they're very intelligent on the analytical side too. And I think that, that's obviously where baseball is going now, is having that nice blend of guys, and they could, they're able to give us the information, but at a level that we understand it too, that we could, use it on the field.
Yeah. One of those guys, probably Daniel Moskos, right? Your pitching coach this past season, just got a job with the Cubs as their assistant pitching coach. So that's great for him. What were you able to take away from him and his experiences?
Yeah, I mean, he was my guy in that offseason, that long COVID offseason. He was the one that I was back and forth with. So, I mean, I owe him a ton of credit for, some of these strides that I've gained. And he's a perfect example of that perfect blend of the analytic and just having the mindset of a pitcher too, because he was a dude when he was coming up too. And he probably still is in his mind. And that's the way he carries himself too. So it's good to learn from him. And then at the same time, he's one of the smartest analytical dudes that I know too.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this past season too, you were involved in a no-hitter. Pretty special. Luis Severino started the game on a rehab assignment. Sean Semple, and then off to you to close it out. What were your emotions and the whole experience around that whole no-hitter game?
I I tell a lot of people that was probably the most nerve-wracking inning that I've pitched all year long. And I pitched a lot of innings at the end of the game. And, just before the game, it's funny, like I knew that I was pitching the ninth inning that day, no matter what. So just sitting there watching it develop was kind of like, oh man, like here we go. Like this is happening right now. And, it had the feeling to it the whole game. Like after Sevy got through his 4 pretty quick, and then Semple, I think, got through those next 2 innings and maybe like 11 or 12 pitches. So then all of a sudden we're sitting there in the 7th inning and I was like, wow, am I still going in this thing? But I mean, it was surreal, especially with Sean. Sean's a guy that I trained with in the off season, and he's a Jersey guy too. So that was cool being able to share the moment with him too.
How were you able to control your emotions in that situation, really focus on the job and the task at hand? I mean, it's pretty hard to really block out the other thoughts of, don't let the situation get out of hand here. Still trying to win a ball game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that was one of the better teams that we have faced all year. And, they had some good bats in that order too. So it was kind of, just try and block all that out. And at the same time, like try and finish it off for the team, because I knew that I was going to get the last leg of that. So it was stay focused and try and get these 3 outs as quick as possible.
Yeah, I mean, Severino was one of many guys that you rehabbed with, many big league players that came down and had their rehab assignments in Double A and even Triple A. Were you able to take away anything from any of the big leaguers?
Yeah, I mean, I got to talk to a few of them. Zach Britton was one of them that I got to shoot the breeze with a little bit down in the bullpen when I think one of his last outings came out of the bullpen, and it was kind of, just cool to see the way that they think about the game too. And he made it seem as if, like, making that next step isn't the biggest step ever. He's like, you're going to see a lot of the guys that you played with in Double A and Triple A. When you make that step up there, it's not like, and he was making references to some of the bigger name guys, and he was like, these are the guys that I played in Double A. So, like, by the time I was facing them in the big leagues, it was, the 15th, 20th time that I faced them. So it's not, a huge shock to the system. So, it was good to hear, stuff like that. So it's not like some mythical, spot that you've never been before. You're coming up with these same guys too.
Yeah, I mean, Double A too, a lot of prospects, a lot of top guys in that league. So it really makes sense. I mean, you're going to be facing a lot of those guys in the near future, in the next few years.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, you were in Somerset for a majority of the season. What can you tell me about the environment that you noticed while there, and especially for them being the first year with an MLB affiliate?
It was definitely awesome. I mean, especially having fans back finally. I mean, the beginning of the year was a little bit slower, and then it's, restrictions starting to lighten up, and then having fans back. And I think that Somerset did a really good job. I mean, that field was awesome. And then they even got hit with that flooding towards the end of the year, and that ground crew is amazing. They did an unreal job of getting it. I think they missed 3 games at home or something. The field was under 2 feet of water, which is pretty incredible. It looks like the field is done, and they ended up finishing up that series over at Somerset. So I think Somerset was an awesome place to play. I really enjoyed my time there.
Now, most recently, you were added to the 40-man roster. Big accomplishment right there. And there were many tough decisions that had to be made in order to make room for you and the 4 others that were added. Were you expecting to be added? I mean, there were a lot of different moves that had to be made and everything, and one of them ended up working out for you right there.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I was expecting to be added. I was definitely very hopeful for it. I felt that I put myself in a good position to at least have an opportunity to be added. So I'm definitely super grateful. There was me and all the guys that were added, we're in the same boat, and there's probably 5 or 6 other dudes that could have been added, just as easily. So we were all pulling for each other, because we all, we play together all year long, and it's something obviously that we all work for. So I'm super happy for the opportunity, but I wouldn't say something that I expected, but something I was definitely, truly hopeful for.
Right. Can you take us through when you first found out that they were adding you?
So it was probably only 10 minutes before the deadline was over. So I was almost checked out on it at that point. I was like, maybe, nobody knew what the Yankees were doing. There's all the rumors they're going to trade for him. So I was sitting there hoping the phone would ring, and then it finally rang. And I think it was Kevin Reese and the rest of our pitching guys, Sam, Desi, and Schmitty. And they were like, "Hey, you just got added to the 40-man roster." And I was kind of taken back a little bit, and I was like, "Wow, I'm super excited." And it was kind of a joke, like, "Oh yeah, you sound like it." And I was kind of at a little loss for words, because childhood dream is to play for the Yankees. So
That's awesome. Yeah, it's pretty special. I mean, it's definitely a big accomplishment, and we'll see what happens here in spring training once things are figured out with the CBA.
yeah, hopefully that clears up quick.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But definitely want to touch on younger players, some advice for them. You being from Jersey, I'm from Jersey. I know how it could get very cold in the wintertime, and it's tough for athletes to get their work in. Have you recognized any sorts of ways that you're able to get your work in besides an indoor facility? I know that's really the go-to, especially for pitchers. I mean, it's easier for pitchers, I think, probably. Have there been any training methods that have worked for you?
I think medicine ball work is something that I kind of fell in love with this past off season, and it's, something I attribute to my trainer kind of bringing to light for me, because it wasn't really something that I took very serious, but it's kind of like it's a stuff that you could do that's low stress on the arm, and all you need is a brick wall somewhere. So it's, something like simple as that can just continue to hammer away at mechanics on the pitching side. And, it's easy. It's something that like you can fall in love with pretty easy because it's a strength thing too. So you could kind of get after a little bit. And I think as a Jersey guy, that's something that, you should 100% take advantage of is, doing as much medicine ball work as you can. And then they have all the plyometric balls now that you could use indoors. So that's helpful. And that's definitely, in Jersey, you're playing catch with the net all off season. So it definitely gets tough at times, but.
Yeah, for sure. Have the Yankees ever handed down information to you guys on what you should be working on when it comes to training?
Yes, they definitely do. They give us they do a pretty good job of handing us our throwing program, stuff like that, checking in on that. And as far as the weightlifting side, they are super open to giving us whatever direction we need. A lot of guys like to train with their trainers in the off season. So that's, the direction that some guys take it, but we have one of the best guys, Eric Cressy too, that writes our program. So, if you need somebody, there's definitely, some very valuable information there for you to get.
Awesome stuff. We're going to wrap it up with some fun questions, random questions, a little rapid fire. So first one, best story from this past season, maybe a fun moment, fun story that you remember.
It's got to be the no-hitter. Absolutely.
No-hitter. Awesome. Any pranks that you witnessed or were a part of this season?
I don't think so. Honestly. No pranks.
Tight ship this year?
Yeah.
Who are some of your favorite teammates this past season?
Favorite teammates. The list goes on. I have Greg Weiser, who he's always, one to keep it light around. We kind of call him Grumpy Greg sometimes. So he's a good one. And all my pitching guys, like the list goes on. Like I said, JP, my buddy Jansen that got traded, Sean, it's kind of, a small group that you latch on with. And then one of my favorite players to play with is Max Burt. Max Burt is one of the best dudes to be around. He is probably the best defensive player I've ever seen. And, he's just one of those dudes that you hate him if he's on the other team, but you love to play with him because he's kind of got that swagger about him that he's going to make the plays behind you.
What was the best and worst city or stadium to play in?
The best is definitely Worcester. I think that place is so much fun to play. Tuesday night they had full house. Every night throughout the week was a full house there. And the worst, that's tough to say. There wasn't many bad places I played this year. Maybe Rochester, I think might have been one of the. It still wasn't bad. Like I said, like we're picking between some pretty nice places, but I think the easy answer is definitely Worcester was the best one.
One of the last ones for you, the toughest hitter you faced this year. You faced a lot of guys, especially prospects, rehabbers, whoever. Who was one of the toughest ones?
Toughest hitter that I didn't get out this year, I would have to say, is probably Riley Green. I think that I had two long at bats with him, 2-3-2 walks. So he didn't do too much damage against me, but it was one of those at bats where it was kind of just tough to put away.
Right, battle. You get him in the big leagues though. It'll be right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it'll be all right. Last two for you, Jersey-related questions, the ones everyone's always asking. This year, a lot of people would say that you played in Somerset, which was in Central Jersey. Do you think Central Jersey exists?
No, Somerset is definitely North Jersey.
All right, and the second one, Taylor Ham or pork roll?
Pork roll. All day.
Oh my god. I don't know. Around here, I'm up north more. I'm like 20 minutes from the city, so we call it Taylor Ham up here.
Okay. Wow.
Well, Ron, I appreciate you coming on. Great talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of the off season.
You too, man. Have a good one.
All right.
Hey guys, it's Tom McCarthy, the voice of the Philadelphia Phillies. You're listening to Billy the Bat Boy's Corner.